Hey everybody, so welcome to our very first Spaces with Nodle and Friends. I'm your host for the next hour, Darren McKelvey. I run communications and community growth for Nodle. If you're not familiar with Nodle, I think most people are, but we are a citizen-powered IoT or Internet of Things connectivity network built to solve global challenges privately, securely, and at low cost. If you noticed, anybody with a smartphone can earn passive income in Nodle Cash while helping building a smarter, more sustainable digital infrastructure for cities, towns, many different things. So you can download the Nodle Cash app if you haven't already and get rewarded in crypto for providing connectivity for nearby IoT devices and sensors. So today we're going to try and answer the question, can Web3 fix a broken Internet of Things? So I don't know if you guys saw this poll that we put out on the Nodle Network Twitter. It was basically asking, is the Internet of Things broken, or is it something that we don't really need to worry about? And it was pretty even, I think about like 150 votes, so it's a small sample size, but it was around, 36% thought that it's broken and can be fixed, and 34% thought that it is broken and cannot be fixed. So we're here to go through that. So let's introduce some of our participants and a little bit of background. So you have about 30 to 45 seconds to introduce yourself. Micha, you want to start?
Sure. Our first Spaces. I'm a co-founder and CEO at Nodle. I've been on this journey of building decentralized wireless solutions and communication solutions for almost 20 years now. And I'm super happy to be able to explain and to answer questions on how actually the Web3 and blockchain can help fix things and make connectivity better for everyone in the future. We are really working with a lot of enthusiasm at Team Nodle. The team is growing also every week. Just sharing that message, because if you are interested to join actually a team of passionate people who are going to change the future and the way wireless is built, do not hesitate to reach out to us. I'm going to let others introduce themselves.
Sergio.
Hi, happy to go next. I met Micha when he was very busy with his previous venture, FireChat, and I immediately got enamored with his drive and foresight. So when he first pitched Nodle to me 5-6 years ago, I immediately understood it was the future, and I was happy to be the first investor in the company. And ever since, I've been following very closely and even working there and here for a few times here and there. And in the meanwhile, I've been also helping some big tech companies, including Reddit, to understand their place in crypto. So now I'm specifically working with Nodle to list the tokens and make sure that everything goes smoothly in the next few quarters. Liquidity is very important for a network that is based on a crypto token for higher purposes of communication and IoT infrastructure.
Thank you, Sergio. Michelle?
Hi, my name is...
How are you?
Hi, my name is Michelle. My NFT account is Big Goddesses. I also have a radio show called Laptop Radio at Stanford, KZSU, 90.1 FM. And I'm a mentor at a couple blockchain accelerators, including Berkeley Blockchain Accelerator, and also REV, which is at Duke University. And we have some blockchain projects there as well. Just really, I was counselor at PayPal and co-founded a crypto digital wallet in 2015 and held conferences about virtual currency in 2013. So a little bit kind of early, but really excited about Nodle and what they're doing. And I do believe that Web3 can fix the broken Internet of Things. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle, for joining. Michelle and I have known each other for a few years now, and I don't know if she sleeps. She's building, whether it's community, it's NFTs, always involved in cool stuff. Speaking of somebody else who's always building, Garrett, can you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Garrett. I'm calling you here from Europe. We're here in Berlin. So pardon the music in the background. It is siesta time. I'm the co-founder of Nodle, so it's great to be speaking with you all. And I've been working together with Micha for, I guess it's almost 4 years now on this project. So we're super excited. I lead kind of hardware and right now growing the network. So working with app developers to grow and expand the network. On to you guys.
Thank you. Eliott, who just celebrated his birthday yesterday, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good to meet you guys. I'm Nodle's Chief Blockchain Officer, which is basically a fancy way to say that I'm in charge of putting our chain together and making sure it runs fine. Previously to that, I've been CTO of a company called BitNation, which was doing decentralized organizations before decentralized organizations were cool. And among other things, I also happen to be co-founder of the Governance Research Institute, along with Micha, which is researching governance questions. I guess, on to the next one.
Great. And Kinsa Durst from Republic.
Hey, thanks for having me here. I'm leading marketing and growth at Republic, and I know our entire team has been working with Nodle for a while now. It's a very unique project in the space, and it's been an amazing journey together. Most recently, we had the awesome panel talk. Eliott came over along with Kala, Moonbeam, and Pontim. Had a great talk about parachain auctions there, and really looking forward to your development in Polkadot as well as IoT space and beyond.
Awesome, fantastic. So I think there are some folks on here that are more on expert mode, but let's go over some basics first. So let's define Web3 in the easiest terms. And is Web3 better than Web2? I think we can all agree, but let's go over some basics. Anybody want to take that one?
If no one else wants, I can give it a try.
Go ahead, Eliott.
Okay. Well, if you think about it, many people, many companies are trying to oversell Web3 or what it is. But if we want to put it in a simpler way, I like to see it as a movement almost, where it's a movement where people would be then able to better control their data, to be sovereign, to avoid relying on too many third parties. Versus Web2, which is the universe of our beloved Google, Facebook, Twitter, since we're on Twitter today, where users don't really control their data. We don't really have transparency. We cannot see who's doing what with our data, our personal and private data. Yeah.
I would like to add to that, and I think the comparison Eliott does with Web2 is actually very relevant here. I think we have seen the limit of Web2. We have seen basically, the benefits, but also the drawbacks of the way companies, and especially big internet companies, have been built and how they occupy the space today, and all the problems that it also is creating in our society. And the big wave, I would say even the big tidal wave of Web3 today, when you see the number of projects and the interest it is actually creating, is there because it means there is something to fix in the way we have been building companies, and especially tech companies in the last 20 years. And so I think there is a lot of hope in the way we build companies in the Web3 industry, which is completely different from before. It means building solutions that cannot be censored. It means building solutions that are more resilient. And it also means solutions that enable you to protect better the privacy of people, which is extremely important, especially in the context of what we are doing in the Internet of Things. So I think it's a necessity. How long will it take to get to actually new big projects and organizations running services at a large scale, leveraging the technologies of Web3 and blockchain. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's clearly a new wave that's tidal now and that keeps on growing. And I think it's going to do a lot of good for society.
I wanted to talk a little about payments and how that can be changed. So you guys, I was at PayPal for like 6 years, and I also supported Bill Me Later when you can pay, and then you can buy something and pay later. Also Zong, where you can buy with telephone numbers, and also Weird.app, which is an app where they know where you are, and then they basically offer discounts to you. And when you really look at the Web 1, Web 2 companies of yesterday or today, you can't have assets, right? You need to have 1, credit score. 2, they need to prove you. 3, you need to, basically have bank accounts and whatnot. And those comes with a set of fees. And there's punishment too, right? So I think with Web3, and the internet, I think since payments has become a vertical to a large number of companies now with token and tokenization, I think with Web3 is people can have more of a fair access to things that they haven't had before, and especially if you're in emerging countries that didn't provide those services, and I think things are just so much easier now if you wanted to lend and borrow, and especially with DeFi, and incentivization, right? We the people gave the value to Facebook. We gave them data, and they sell those data. I think with Web3, even with the Internet of Things, we are incentivized by our contribution and the value. And I think that partnership with the platform and with the blockchain, I think that's going to be really important. Besides all the, the characteristics of a blockchain, right? Besides all the immutability and transparency and all that kind of stuff.
So with Web3, it's more inclusive, and there's more democratization. Kinsa, how do you see Web3 versus Web 2?
Yeah, for Web3, I think myself, I would have to go off just the topic we were just that she just mentioned around incentivization, proper incentivization. I think us individually are participating in so many different Web 2 networks where we're creating free data, but we don't see any upside from it. I think the companies are kind of, in a way, abusing the data to gain upside and monetization, and even abuse in some ways. And it's definitely not healthy in the long term. Of course, platforms like Facebook and social media are free, but I think it costs the users in the long run. So Web3 provides a new incentive mechanism for participants in certain ecosystems. In this case specifically, IoT, right? So I'm really excited to see that incentivization kind of create like a viral movement across the globe, and people getting properly compensated for creating data, just participating in the network, and I see the value going both ways, not just for the company but for the users as well. So super excited for Nodle to be one of the leading companies heading these efforts.
Thanks for that, and go ahead.
Yeah, I think what Kinsa highlighted is very important. Is Web3 is enabling the creation of new incentives that wouldn't have been possible before. And in our space, you can, you live this every day when you use your telco, for example, your wireless or your mobile provider. You realize that even if these companies buy a big asset with spectrum from governments, and if they spend money in infrastructure to deploy access, there are still places, even in the US, where you don't have mobile access, especially if you are in a remote area, and that's just because they don't see a direct return on investment. And I think that's penalizing actually a lot of people, a lot of companies as well. And with the incentive you can create within Web3, you can completely shift the way this incentive used to work. And for example, in our case, by enabling a system where people get paid for building the infrastructure, we are starting with Bluetooth Low Energy and with people's smartphone. But tomorrow, we already have prototypes working on base station for 4G and 5G. So it means that tomorrow you will have also people and enterprise being incentivized for building the infrastructure directly. And that means that at some point we will be able to provide potentially for consumers free mobile access and have different incentives to keep on having an ecosystem and an economy where only business applications, for example, pay for access. And I think this is a big shift, and it's something that Web3 is enabling, and that's going to create and not only a new opportunity for so many people and so many projects and companies, but it's going to change people's habit at some point. And I think it's a new way to value actually what's really valuable, which was not possible before in a more traditional economy and a Web2 environment.
Thank you, Micha. And Sergio, you were the first investor in Nodle, and love to hear about how you heard about Nodle, and are you, like, how familiar have you been with the Internet of Things? Because we'll transition into the basics after this.
It was for me, right?
Yeah.
So frankly, I don't see a big difference between Internet of Things and people when it comes to Web3. It all boils down to asymmetric cryptography, to how the simple use of a private and a public key and the modern cryptography enable anything, anyone, any computer, any chip to sign a transaction, a message, a proof. And from then on, the major differences between Web 1, 2, and 3 is that Web 3 has expanded vertically the stack that can be manipulated in real time, and where developers can build, and where users, be them devices or people, can operate within the space. So it's a huge revolution that is happening under our eyes. It's very complex to just grasp it and identify one or two things that make it sexy or useful. But the whole point is that I think there should be no distinction between machines and people in Web3. And that's why I think that Nodle is particularly powerful, because it is an IoT network. But the truth is that it's a network for anyone that wants to send a message, that anyone wants to leverage low energy situations, they want to have very sophisticated proofs of existence, of location, of time, and don't necessarily need to use the traditional channels and infrastructure. So, when you start building a highway for a new country, you don't really know if it's going to be a truck or a car using it most. You know more or less what exits ramps are, and where you can get in, you can get out. You're not sure how the toll system is going to work, if you're going to increase or remove totally the tolls, if they're going to be sponsored by third parties, but you're building the highway, and that's what Nodle is doing now.
Thank you. Now, let's, before we transition to some of the mechanics around the Internet of Things and what's happening and the revolution that's undertaking, let's go over some basics. Who can describe the basics around IoT? What is the Internet of Things, and what is not Internet of Things?
I'll do it. So, to be short, Internet of Things means, it seems to relate to things connecting to the internet. Thank you, Eliott. And to put it a bit longer, the main idea behind what the IoT of things, Internet of Things is The idea that all your normal devices that you didn't think you could connect to the internet can now connect to it and provide you value by that. So I'm thinking of smart fridges. You know, you never thought your fridge could be connected to the internet, but if it is, it can tell you whenever your food is going to expire. It can tell you what your food is inside your fridge when you're shopping. If let's think of your coffee maker. If you connect it to the internet, maybe you can control it remotely from your phone. And it doesn't necessarily need to be connected to the internet. It can just be connected to your local network.
I think what we don't realize is the cost of actually connecting a thing or item to the internet is going to be so low that there's no reason why not even a chair and or any item or device, we don't have a way to actually broadcast from time to time an identity which is encrypted or not. We don't have basically a radio interface able to send data back to the internet or a radio interface just to be queried by other devices around it. And I actually think the way people define the Internet of Things today, I'm thinking about the big consulting companies, is pretty limited. And when you look at the number they announced, it's 20, 30 billion, and some say, up to 50 billion devices connected. I actually think with the cost of this wireless interface going down, we're going to see a Bluetooth stickers or Bluetooth tag with the cost going sub-dollar, below 50 cents. I think the number of things that are going to be connected is going to be actually in the hundreds of billions and at some point reach a trillion thing. If you just look at RFID, for example, RFID, you have 20 billion RFID tags every year at least. So when you have a technology like Bluetooth Low Energy that can enable data to pass and be communicated to any smartphone, that doesn't require a specific equipment to actually communicate. And when you know that this can be linked to sensors, which cost is also very, very low, there is no economical and no reason why actually not everything is not going to end up with a wireless and a radio interface at some point. And so I see a world which I call a hyper-connected world, with not tens of billions of things, but actually more than a trillion things connected from time to time. And that's why privacy is so important. And that's why Web3 and the way of building networks has to change. It has to remain simple, but at the same time, guarantee the privacy of people. And that's a very, very important topic. Actually, Eliott can give some examples of the work we have done with the Web3 Foundation for building certificates that can guarantee the authenticity of the devices that will connect to this giant network and also protect the data that's moving on this network.
Sure. Before we get into that,
and just before, I'd like to piggyback on what Micha just said. One industry that is very intimately linked to IoT is big data. Because the point of IoT devices is that they can generate so much data that we never thought we could generate. And big companies and state actors and malicious people are very interested in that data because it means value to them. And we hope that with our stack, we will be able to better protect it so that your private data does not leak to another country.
So my AirPods are IoT, right? My laptop is Internet of Things, right?
Technically, yes.
Yes, correct.
But in principle, when we think of Internet of Things, we think of devices that we didn't think could be connected to the internet, let's say 5 or 10 years ago. So personally, I would keep your laptop. I mean, the laptop role is a bit in between, right? It's related to IoT, but it's also not just IoT. It's really a device. It's made to connect to the internet, and it was made for that years ago.
And Kinsa or Michelle, like when you think of Internet of Things, like do you get happy or do you what's your reaction? Like what's the image that comes into your head? Is it like the cloud?
Yeah, I actually have Alexa. which I purchased many years ago, and I built on it. Like I was using it. However, I had to unplug it, and after I unplug it, I haven't used it ever since. I think the image in my head is that I'm afraid of privacy. All the things that are recorded in the office, and I purposely didn't bring it, home. I left it in the office. However, when you have calls, you don't want Alexa or Amazon to listen to the messages. And, as an attorney, I'm afraid of, like search and seizure, right? Fourth Amendment, privacy, and also being used, like even with Fitbit, right? Because you're tracked. People think that you could kill someone when you actually didn't, So I think with IoT, I think, the previous, I want, an IoT device that could incentivize me for using it, but doesn't track me and just, let me use it, and doesn't use my data, or even if those usage is in the privacy policy, that those would be honored. Because there are companies too who misuse our data outside of their privacy policy, like Facebook. So those are some of the things that, as a consumer, I would be concerned about.
Yeah, that's definitely something. When I actually, I'm Darren. I joined Nodle about 2 years ago, and when I heard about that we were connecting things with Bluetooth, right? I didn't know the difference between Bluetooth and Bluetooth Low Energy, because I always thought about I'm pairing my phone and it's extremely insecure. So there's definitely a learning curve, I think, for the general populace around the depth that we can make the Internet of Things more secure. So maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the basis for the low power connectivity that creates the nodal network around Bluetooth and Bluetooth Low Energy. Let's go over some of the differences and maybe some impressions around whether most people think they're secure. What are some things that some people don't get about BLE?
I can maybe add to some of that, Darren. And just to kind of continue on the discussion that you had about all this data, people don't really realize that technology is advancing exponentially. Moore's law is really the classic example, but this applies to lots of things. The efficiency of solar panels increases exponentially. Your ability to move data wirelessly, but also the amount of data that you can collect on an individual increases exponentially as well. And almost everything is starting to collect data. We believe that anything that can generate data that's worth more than about $1, which is the cost to connect something to our network, in hardware and in software and everything at scale, we believe that anything that generates data that's worth more than $1 will be connected to the internet, and we'll start collecting data about the world around us. And we're trying to make sure and ensure that this is a world that we want to live in. You look at today, Facebook just launched glasses. So you can imagine now, if people actually buy these things, we'll have Facebook sunglasses starting to collect data. We have self-driving cars collecting data, satellites and aircraft and cell towers, and all this information is increasing exponentially, and poses a lot of really interesting challenges. In fact, we live in a world now where the lack of data can sometimes tell you something about the world. So what we're doing is we're using Bluetooth to connect things to the internet. And we're actually ensuring that the security for that device actually goes down to the IoT device itself. So a sensor, a disposable packaging, anything could have hardware grade banking level security built into it. And then when we transmit a signal up to a smartphone to carry that data onto the cloud, it can be encrypted down to that level. Maybe, Darren, you want to counter to that or add to that?
Well, Kinsa needs to jet to another call, but we'll catch up soon, Kinsa. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't disappear and people just wondered.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I feel like this conversation was just getting started. We'll have to catch up later. Thank you so much for the invite.
Really appreciate it. So Garrett, what was the last thing you were saying? Because I was texting with Kinsa.
So we were discussing that the amount of data that's in the world around us is increasing. We believe that the Nodle network will hypercharge that, and we're trying to build privacy and security into this infrastructure natively, all the way down to the hardware device. We could go over a bit about just the overview of how we connect IoT devices and talk about some of the security there.
Yeah, I think before we get into that, I invited up Decentralized D. I should have chosen that name, or I like the name. Please introduce yourself if you have a question on this topic.
Hey, my name is Jen. Can you hear me? Decentralized Dick is my art project. I forget at what point I raised my hand, but I've been in the down the NFT rabbit hole, but essentially was looking for decentralized social media. And I think when we talk about like Web3, I just went through the process of like building a full generative project. And I have no tech background, but like we're kind of in Web 2.5, right? And so we talk about it like it's so different, but we're still accessing this. I mean, we're talking on fucking Twitter right now. We're accessing all of this stuff through, centralized devices, centralized servers, and unless like everyone can really be taught how to fully protect themselves, which is, only as possible as everything that we've already put all of our information into. I don't know. I feel like it's a cool idea, but in reality, I see a lot of stuff happening where it's like, okay, we can learn from like the past, and I don't want the fall of Tumblr 2.0. I don't want, there are solutions within the technology, but yeah, that's the quick rant.
So I should have known with that name there. I appreciate the comment there. So can we agree that we're in Web 2.5? Everybody?
I
think that sounds good to me.
Well,
yeah.
when you look at the number of blockchain projects and Web3 projects, and you probably do a fine analysis of how many of them are truly decentralized, you realize that we are still in a Web 2.5. But I think the full decentralization, especially with now also more knowledge and development around decentralized autonomous organization. All these things are going to accelerate actually how this system gets managed and improve how decentralized they can be. I think the only true decentralized model that we have today, and sometimes you can even question the total decentralization of it, but at least it works as it is, and it's the best example. I think it's Bitcoin. So 2.5. I agree. 2.5 is not a bad way to put it. To put the where we are now at in this evolution.
Go ahead. Hey, Micha, I have a question for you. Whether it's 2.5 or 2.6, we're still a far way to go. And I'm just wondering, what is your vision for IoT and decentralization? And with that said, I particularly, when people talk about decentralized, the terms means different things. There is really not decentralized if there's still a central governance body that kind of controls, the project. And so I want to know, what is your vision for Nodle and the Internet of Things in a fully decentralized way, in 2 years, 5 years from now, whenever that Eliott, makes it fully decentralized, or what do you guys decide to do? But I'm just really curious.
Well, Thank you for asking this question. It's actually I'll try to add to the vision and also explain the steps. So first, we are fully committed as a team to decentralize completely this network at some point, and make sure that it remains sustainable and it can benefit the greater number. We think it's absolutely essential for guaranteeing people's privacy and for also enabling the creation of wireless networks wherever they are needed, and they're going to be needed everywhere if we want to actually improve a lot of things in the way society is operating now. I think Web3 is going to play a role on how we redefine society and how we improve society as a whole. So first, to come back to the vision, I think our vision has always been and remains to connect the next trillion things. And we are really building the infrastructure for enabling the connection of a trillion things or more in a very, very simple way. I want to make a stop and a pause before I continue on the vision and the steps on the mission of Nodle. And currently our mission is to make sure, and especially with the Nodle Cash app, we want to arrive to the point where actually the Nodle Cash app pays for your mobile plan, because that's when we can really start to reverse and change the current incentive in the wireless space. And when we reach that point, then I think it's going to a lot of things are going to unfold, and basically everything is going to accelerate for Nodle and for the decentralization of wireless networks. And the third thing, which is important, is purpose. Is why are we doing all that? We are doing all that because if you build a world where information can flow freely, where others can build application on top of this highway, as Sergio mentioned earlier, and any type of application, it is true that today we don't know all the things that are going to run on this network, then you can create an infrastructure for abundance. And I think that's totally necessary for society. It means a world where at some point, because all these things can communicate, you can have demand matching basically offer, and in many different industries. Because when you have information that flow, when you have anything that can access the internet, all the systems can be more automated and communicate with one another directly in a secure manner without having a central server controlling these communications. And that's where I think we are really working and building all this, is really to build that infrastructure that will enable anything to communicate with another in a very, very simple manner in the future, in a secure manner, while protecting people's privacy. And that should improve the society we live in as a whole, because when you create these highways, you're going to create more ways new ways to create businesses, to create application, and you're going to enable and unlock the creation of value in ways that hasn't been thought before, to the point where you can create what I call this infrastructure for abundance. And that's, I think, the very long-term vision, and why we are growing this team and why we are working every day.
Thanks.
So I think we had a couple threads here. At the basic level, let's talk briefly about Bluetooth and Bluetooth Low Energy. What do people not realize about Bluetooth Low Energy?
Well, I can take it. There's really two things. One is that it's really programmable. So without going too far into the details, think of it, Bluetooth as a programming language for reality. Except today it hasn't been used that way. It's been used to, unlock your car or connect to your speaker. But Bluetooth is actually a way that you can go out and ask questions. So they have this thing called the GATT characteristic. So you can go out and ask questions. You can exchange cryptographic information. There's really some powerful things you can do with Bluetooth, and we're just at the beginning of it. It's really a very, very interesting protocol. So I'd say that's one thing that's kind of unique about Bluetooth. It's not just for connecting speakers. It's really for interacting with the world around you.
And how did you guys get into Bluetooth?
Well, we built system in the past. Garrett and I we were enabling smartphones to communicate with one another. The first purpose was to enable smartphones to share access to the internet, or to access the internet through other smartphone or another device when there is no when that specific device doesn't have access to the internet. And we actually built that on two technologies. One was based on Wi-Fi, called Wi-Fi Direct, which is a slight variation of the current Wi-Fi, and then we started also to use Bluetooth, and Bluetooth has evolved extremely fast in the last 5 to 10 years, and has improved drastically. And the big advantage, especially in the Internet of Things, is that 50% today of all IoT devices that are produced have a Bluetooth low energy interface. And because they use the standard that Garrett mentioned, which is the GATT, when they use that standard, any device in proximity that has a Bluetooth low energy interface can easily exchange and communicate with that other device, because it is a standard. And that's what makes it actually fantastic, is when you have a smartphone, for example, approaching, I would say, I will give the example of a weather base station that uses a Bluetooth interface and uses the GATT, so that protocol. The smartphone can query that weather station and can ask for information: what's the temperature, how much battery do you have, what's the quality of the air, and ask all these metrics directly to the weather station, and the weather station is going to reply, because it's a codified language that all devices understand. And that's one of the reasons we started to focus on Bluetooth, because it is extremely powerful. It is widespread. It's one of the most widespread wireless interface, and also because you have Bluetooth energy on every smartphone. And we wanted to leverage what we call the smartphone infrastructure and start with people for building this giant network.
Sergio or Eliott, do you want to comment on that?
Not from my side.
Everything has been said, right, by Micha.
So, would love to get some questions from the audience. You don't need to be an expert. You can be an expert, but curiosity is very important here. Just want to just demystify some of the terms that we're talking about. Mohammed, let me invite you up for a question. Curious what your background is. Hey, Mohammed.
Hello, hi. I wanted to quickly ask, we were told that the Internet of Things is going to connect things that didn't connect to the Internet, but doesn't that make it more vulnerable, and how is it how can that be secured? Thank you.
You touched on a very important point. I think the best to answer that question is Eliott, because he has been working specifically on how to make communications more secure.
I was going to reply.
And so I think I will let Eliott take that answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there's a famous saying in our ecosystem which says the S in IoT stands for security, and which says the S in IoT stands for security, and like smart webcams to trigger attacks on the internet. So to answer the first part of your question, I would tend to say that IoT poses serious security issues. And so far, it was not really solved at scale. I mean, most devices are not even upgraded, right? On our side, we think that Nodle can propose a good enough solution for that, mainly since our network is relying on very strong cryptographic primitives, and part of our projects will be to develop an IoT device that is fully integrated with the Nodle network at the firmware level, meaning that its chips and software is built specifically to interact with the Nodle network. And when we do that, we will be able to ensure that, first of all data is always encrypted and authenticated. And we'll be able to distribute upgrades extremely fast thanks to the Nodle network. But more than that, we're also building a new set of standards around the concept of identity-ish for IoT devices and certificates that will ensure, for instance, that an IoT device was not compromised. And we can do it thanks to a set of, carefully fine-tuned cryptographic primitives and chips and a deep integration into the hardware and firmware itself of the device. And once we do that, you can then have a proof that your device was not tampered with, for instance, and that it is fully secure. That I hope it answers the question kind of without being too.
I just would like to add to what Eliott mentioned, Mohammed, that the best way to secure communications is at some point to have this network really decentralized communications from an IoT device going directly to the person who owns the IoT device, even if it's in another location, or reach the persons who actually operate the device without having to go and pass through a central server. And the technologies that Eliott mentioned and we have been working on basically is we are building this to achieve that goal, where a device can be authenticated and basically send directly the data without stopping on a central server, just to enrich directly the person who owns that data or has the legitimate access to the data. And that's how you can really help building a more secure world in the IoT space. And we're also developing partnerships for that. We with one of the biggest, I would say, company in the cryptographic space today in the blockchain world, and we have some very cool things that are going to be announced most probably before the end of the year in that space.
So, what would you say the biggest issues are with IoT? We've got privacy, we've got security. It seems like FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, etc. They say that they want to protect us, but they don't seem that they're incentivized over the long run. Micha, Garrett, I know you have things to say about this.
Here's the thing, Dan. If you think about it, without security, you cannot have privacy. Because if a device can be hacked, tampered with, then also data can be stolen and weaponized. So yes, privacy is more than just security. There's also the fact that, as you mentioned, companies like Facebook, Amazon, Huawei, and others and strive on collecting the data from your devices. But if these devices are not secure, then it's not only those companies that can access the data. It's hackers, APT, whatever the number is for Chinese hacking groups, North Korea, all those guys will also be able to access your devices, and then this breaks the privacy, I would say, requirement in an even worse way, if possible.
I'd say it's even deeper than that. Nodle is shifting the fundamental economics of the internet. So since the internet was built, the only way we could really monetize it was ads or selling out your users. Or in-app purchase. We believe that Nodle is another way for all of these companies to monetize their apps. Snapchat and Instagram could make money by running Nodle without having to sell out their users. And so we think that can be a very powerful shift in the actual economics of privacy, because privacy at its core is an economic problem. It's much easier for your telco or your social network provider to sell you out because it's their only way to really make money. Nodle provides another way. So we hope that we can really shift that. Go ahead, Micha.
Yeah, I want to add to what Garrett just said, where once we start to see more devices and more manufacturers doing a good job at protecting privacy of users and securing their devices, we will see also how incentives for moving data from these devices increase. So that's how we can actually incentivize more manufacturers and more people to care about privacy and security, is by rewarding users who are moving data that is coming from devices that are secure, in more than devices that actually don't move private information. If that information is supposed to be private, there are also many data and source of data that should remain public. So when it comes, for example, for an air quality sensor in cities or temperature, information that are very useful for the public good, that information doesn't necessarily need to be encrypted and can remain open on the network. But if it's information that is sensitive because it belongs to someone, that information should definitely be encrypted. So the problem of privacy and security, I think, is also much bigger. It's a problem of education, and we are spending time educating our partners or future partners, manufacturers, on how they can secure better their devices. But it's something that basically needs also to become a priority for all the manufacturers of IoT devices.
And Polkadot's going to play a big part in our growth. Eliott, do you want to talk about some of our plans around Polkadot and why we chose to build on parity substrate?
Sure. I don't know if it's fully related to the privacy and security discussion, but one of the main reasons we chose to build with Substrate, because we were interested in Substrate before Polkadot, was that just so convenient to build a custom tailored blockchain route. And then when you think about Polkadot, once you have a Substrate blockchain, you can add a few nodules to your chain so that you then become potentially a parachain. On our side, we believe that we have some unique capabilities, especially in terms of IoT, where we could use our chain to connect devices, to incentivize people to go and upgrade devices. And by becoming a parachain, our hope and plans and roadmap is to offer our unique feature sets to other parachains, to other decentralized applications developers, so that they can use our primitives to then build applications we did not think of. Does that answer?
I was more so referring to the shared security of becoming a parachain.
Yeah, that's really related to IoT. But when you become a parachain on Polkadot, you benefit from Polkadot's security set composed of its validators and its $1 billion, I believe, market cap. And the validators from Polkadot then come and secure your parachain so that you don't have to take care of it, or so that you have stronger security than if you were doing things only on your side, especially when you think of economical security. Because then again, Polkadot has $1 billion market cap.
So we have just a few more minutes left. Go ahead, Micha, and we'll take another question from somebody new in the audience.
I can just add to what Eliott just said about the interest of joining the Polkadot ecosystem is actually all these services that are built on different parachains will be able to be interoperable at some point. So that will make things actually extremely secure when you have services or dApps that are built on the Polkadot ecosystem and choosing to use different services or different functions on the network to build their own services, because all these ecosystem basically working together is going to reinforce tremendously the security of the whole. That's something that people don't realize now, but it's going to be a big change. And it's something that was very well thought, I think, at the beginning of the creation of Polkadot and its ecosystem. It's every component you add if you build an app, even if it's involving 4 or 5 different projects. All these components, basically, that you are adding should have and will have basically security at their core.
So let's take questions from the audience. Somebody who has not asked before. Jen, you already asked, so I want to give somebody another opportunity. Just raise your hand. Otherwise, we can take a question from. Oh, here we go. Let me see if Ollie's connecting here. Hey, Ollie, how are you? Can you go off mute?
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Hey, man, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I just want to say, just really impressed with the project and how it's going.
Any questions here? So,
thank you, Ali.
Ollie's an ambassador and got into the project. How long ago?
So it's been about 6 months now, but on the ambassador team about 4 months.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Cool. So any questions for the team here, and as well as Michelle?
Yeah, I was reading recently that up to like 15% of IoT data that's collected at the moment is actually not actually analysed or anything like that. Which makes me believe like there's a massive lack of education in like industry sectors and stuff. Is that something Nodle is going to try and help develop and bring more companies on board and educate them on what IoT can do for them and obviously the benefits of IoT?
Well, thank you, Ali, for the question. It's a very good point. We have started to list in our white paper some of the applications that can be built on this network, and I think we listed 20 of them or a bit more. We are very possibly far from the number of things that can be built. I think it's more in the hundreds and potentially thousands at some point. So what we have in mind is actually start to list more of these applications, to bring more ideas to the market, and also incentivize the creation of these applications when we start to develop the developer ecosystem by directly incentivizing these developers with Nodle Cash for developing these specific applications. And I can name a few here because that way everyone can understand what I mean by IoT application and what this network can do. So for example, through the network, we can have access to the location in the ride-sharing industry, for example, of Uber and Lyft cars. And by isolating that flow of data, we could open it up for app developers, and now app developers could decide to develop a specific app that would help locate or estimate the traffic in real time, almost in big cities of the ride-sharing industry. And that's something that interests directly cities, because cities sometimes have quotas and they want to know how many of these cars are in circulation. And that's a service that could be created very easily on top of our network. So that's just to give you an example of a simple application and the kind of data that is completely unused today and that could be used for that purpose. The same way you can access granular information about temperature in cities, the same. And that's something that could be also very valuable and leveraged. And that's another kind of data that basically can be accessed through the network. So yes, you are correct. It's I think there's some education missing to actually explain and what can be built on this network, and we'll try to communicate examples and also incentivize the creation of these apps for our developer ecosystem when we start to focus on that part, and try to actually do a better job at educating the market on what it means when you can access this type of information, what are the services that can be built, and the revenues that can be generated, because each of these applications will be able to generate additional revenues for our partners and for the whole ecosystem. What's pretty cool is today we incentivize the network thanks to the remote mining, basically by moving data. You get paid for doing that on your smartphone today, but pretty soon as these apps start to be developed, the community will also receive a share of the revenue generated by the app developers who develop these applications on the network. And And then when we reach that point, we think that the revenues actually generated by apps will be greater than the Nodle cash that you are currently generating from your smartphone.
Thanks, Ollie. Great question. Legit Marine, you got a question?
Sure. And you already answered half of it, but I was curious. You said that you were going to be tying into the Polkadot ERC20 tokens, I guess. Does that mean you're going to create your own ERC20 tokens, or can we expect that in the future?
I don't think we mentioned ERC20 tokens, at least for now. But when you become a parachain, your token, let's say your token or your asset becomes immediately interoperable with other parachains that can then transit to other parachains. And if one of those parachains was to handle tokens as ERC20 tokens, so they would just convert them together, then yeah, it will be possible.
So we're coming up on the half hour here. So we're going to wrap in a few minutes. Does anybody have any last thoughts? I mean, this is a rolling conversation, where Nodle is focused on solving this challenge. Micha, do you have anything to say of things coming up that you're really looking forward to? You're in Berlin with Garrett, and Eliott, you'll be there soon,
I'm on
right? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we are. I'm in Berlin as well. Yeah.
So again, thanks everybody for joining us. Wanted to thank our guests, my colleagues, Micha, Eliott, Garrett, Sergio, good friend, Michelle, collaborator and fantastic ambassador, Ollie, who's Manny 101, Hodl Nodle, man of many faces here. And a reminder, Nodle is a citizen-powered Internet of Things connectivity network built to solve global challenges privately, secured, and at low cost. If you don't have the Nodle Cash app, you can go to the App Store, you can go to Google Play, or on the web, nodle.io/cash. You should download from there. If you have any questions, click our profile link, which has it's a link tree and has a bunch of different links in there. Some really exciting news. We'll be participating in Masari's Mainnet Conference, which is in New York City from September 20th to the 22nd. Our CFO, Jay Goldberg, will be speaking on all things Polkadot and Web3 with Ken Seif from Blockchain Ventures, who is a big dot holder and early investor in Nodle. So a bunch of the team is going to be in New York. That'll be Sergio, myself, Brian, who's in the audience, a bunch of others. And we'll be co-hosting an event on September 20th in New York City. So you can DM us about that. If we have a few passes, so it's first come, first serve. We are co-hosting that with Republic. So Kinsa had joined us earlier. Republic's crypto arm. Nasper's the VC firm. It's their digital assets venture group called Process Ventures, and Voyager, the exchange and crypto wallet. So that's going to be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on a rooftop on September 20th. So if you are interested in joining or in town, we do have a few passes for that. And then if you are interested in going to Mainnet and you want a discount ticket, just DM us. But really, thank you all for listening. We'll be doing more of those. I think this is a great first discussion.
And thank you everyone for joining today. It was our first. So yeah, thank you for coming so numerous.
Thanks for joining and supporting us.
Thank you.
Amazing. We'll see you soon. Hopefully see you guys in the Telegram and Discord channels.